Good afternoon. My name is Kensuke Shiomi, an Assistant Director of Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry of Japan, METI. First, thank you very much for inviting me and giving this opportunity to make presentation in this workshop. I'm in charge of the Joint Crediting Mechanism, JCM, which is today's topic. JCM is operated by several Japanese ministries, including the METI, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and so on. The scope of our work is operation of JCM scheme, including maintenance and the revision of JCM rules through the discussion with our JCM partner countries, and operation of joint committee, and the support of private companies who are implementing decarbonizing projects on JCM program. And our mission is expansion of the JCM and CCS, which is this topic, is one of the key projects. Because CCS has the potential to have much larger GHG emission reduction than other type of projects. However, there are no example of CCS project on JCM before. From this background, METI is working on the realization of CCS projects on JCM in a few years. Today, I want to introduce JCM itself and talk about our activities on the CCS. First, I will talk about the overview of JCM itself. This is the basic concept of JCM. Japanese government is promoting JCM from 2013. This is the bilateral framework between Japan and JCM partner countries, and basic concept is shown here. We facilitate diffusion of Japan's leading decarbonizing technologies and infrastructure in the JCM partner countries to contribute to GHG emission reduction or removals and their sustainable development in the partner countries. We do decarbonizing projects under JCM in the partner countries, and the JCM credit will be issued for GHG emission reduction which is realized and shared by both countries. Thereby, JCM is contribute to both countries' NDC, nationally determined contribution. We are establishing the joint committee between Japan and each partner countries to decide any issues related to the JCM projects, like the registration of the projects or issuance of JCM credits. And JCM is consistent with the guidance of Article 6.2 of Paris Agreement and keeps the environmental integrity and the transparency for the high integrity carbon market. This is the current JCM partner countries. We have started consultation between relevant countries from 2011, and today JCM countries are increasing to 25. And regarding the expansion of JCM partner countries, in last June, we have decided a new plan to increase partner countries up to around 30 countries by 2025. To do so, we are accelerating consultations with relevant countries. These blue highlighted 8 countries, Senegal, Tunisia, Azerbaijan, Moldova, Georgia, Sri Lanka, Uzbekistan, and Papua New Guinea, are new partner countries after this new plan decided. So the proposition of new JCM projects in these new countries are much expected as well. These are the examples of past JCM projects. JCM covers most of the decarbonization sector, including renewable energies, energy efficiency, waste power generation, transport, and so on. And the JCM is positioned in the Japan's NDC. We Japan have committed the net zero by 2050. And to realize it, our NDC is 46% reduction of the emission at 2030 from 2013 levels. And JCM will be contributed to the achievement of NDC. We set the target of JCM as the realization of international emission reduction and removals at cumulative total of approximately 100 million tons by 2030 on JCM. So we are now struggling to expand JCM. This is the project cycle of JCM. Left side is the cycle of JCM, and right side is clean development mechanism of Kyoto Protocol. Sorry. And as you can see, the project cycle of JCM is much similar to that of CDM, but the concept of JCM is much more flexible and easier to use. And I think this project cycle of JCM itself is similar to most other crediting programs. First, submission and approval of proposed JCM methodology by joint committee, and registration of project through the validation of the third-party entities. Then project start and monitoring will be conducted, and through the verification of the monitoring report by TPE, the credit will be issued credit will be issued in project participants' account in JSM registry. And my ministry has a financial support scheme for implementation of JSM project for private companies. METI and NEDO, which is the governmental R&D agency, support projects as the technological demonstrations, especially for the advanced decarbonizing technologies. Assume the technical areas are like energy saving with using IoT, energy management systems, CCS, hydrogen and ammonia, and so on. The support scheme consists of two phases. The first is feasibility study stage. In this stage, 1 year period basic study, including the establishment of the basis of JCM methodology, will be conducted. A project whose feasibility is confirmed will move on to the demonstration stage, which is supported by NEDO. In the demonstration stage, introduction and operation of relevant facilities and systems, and the quantification of GHG emission reduction will be conducted. And the JCM credits will be issued according to the result of the demonstration project. So, and these are the past and current projects under NATO demonstration program. 9 projects has already finished, and 2 projects in Thailand are underway. Most of them are the improvement of energy efficiency projects, and there has been no CCS project yet, as you can see. And as I said, we are working on the realization of 100 million tons reduction on JCM by 2030. In order to achieve this, the expansion of JCM is an essential issue. These are some of our current activities to expand JCM. 1. Raising JCM's international recognition by continuous implementation of JCM under Article 6.2 of Paris Agreement. And two, expansion of JCM partner countries up to around 30 countries by 2025, as I said. And three, scale up of JCM projects. We think the third one, the scale up of JCM project, and especially the realization of CCS projects on JCM is the most important because the amount of the GHG reduction in CCS is much larger than other types of projects like a renewable energy or energy efficiency project. And in order to realize CCS projects on JCM, METI is currently working on two things. One, feasibility studies of potential CCS projects to develop CCS projects on JCM. And two, revision of JCM rules and guidelines to include CCS in JCM scope. So I will explain these activities from now. So next is the overview of our CCS-related activities. First, I talk about the development of potential CCS project. This is the history and trend of the development of CCS methodology. I think this figure is already explained in the previous presentation maybe, so I will skip. But after CDM, the CCS methodology is mainly developed in the voluntary sector, like in the United States, Canada, or Australia, and so on. And also the ISO for the CCS and EOR were published recently, I heard. And we are proceeding our activities related to JCM with considering this trend. And regarding the development of potential CCS projects, now we are using our JCM feasibility study program I've just mentioned. In this year, we are adopting three CCS projects. The first one is a CCUS project at Sukowati oil field in Indonesia, implemented by Japan Petroleum Exploration, JAPEX. The second one is CCS project in Gundi gas field in Indonesia, implemented by JGC. And the third one is the CCS project at Artit gas producing field in Thailand by METI Oil Exploration. After this study finished, it is expected to move on to the pilot test stage for the realization of CCS projects on JCM scheme. I will introduce each project in detail. This is the CCUS project at the Sukowati oil field in Indonesia. The CO2 sink is a Sukowati oil field in East Java of Indonesia, which is operated by PT Pertamina of Indonesia. The concept of Sukowati CCUS is that CO2 produced from the JTB gas field, which is near from the Sukowati oil field, and which contains a significant amount of CO2, will be separated and transported to the Sukowati oil field. It will be injected into the oil reservoir to reduce the CO2 emission during oil producing process and achieve enhanced oil recovery (EOR). JCM is expected to play an important role in the commercialization of this Sukowati CCUS project. We are supporting the feasibility study of this project since 2019, and it is expected to move on to the pilot test and commercial development in the near future. And this is the Gundi CCS project. The thing is Gundi gas field in central Java of Indonesia which is operated by Pertamina as well. The concept is 300,000 tons of CO2 per year, which is currently separated from produced gas and released into the air, will be transported via pipelines and injected into the Gundi gas field so that it realizes the CO2 reduction and enhanced gas recovery (EGR). This Gundi project is one of the most famous projects in Indonesia, and it has a long history for about 10 years as the bilateral project between Indonesia and Japan. We are also supporting the feasibility study of this project about nearly 3 years. And this is the status of the CCS project in Indonesia, which was presented by the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources of Indonesia at the second Asia CCUS Forum on last September. As you can see, Gundi and Squati are listed up as leading projects, and it shows the high expectations of Indonesian side as well. The target year of both Gundi and Sukhuwati are 2026. Indonesia is one of the most leading countries for implementation of CCS projects in Asia, and we think these projects might be the first CCS project in Southeast Asia. And this is the third project, CCS at Arctic gas producing field in Thailand. The location is the gas field in the Gulf of Thailand. The concept is inject CO2, which is associated with produced gas and currently being flared at the field, into aquifer and depleted reservoir in the field. It will achieve lower CO2 emission during production process and recover or sell more hydrocarbon, which is currently being flared with CO2. Currently, the first injection is estimated on 2026. So, for us, 2026 is the current target year for CCS projects on JCM. Through our FS program, we are very much expecting this project to be realized, the CCS project on JCM. The next one is the activities to include CCS in JCM scope. First, this too much big table shows the current sectoral scope of JCM, which shows where JCM covers the area of type of project. For example, typical projects with renewable energy and energy efficiency, improvement of energy efficiency are covered in mostly number 1 to 3 regarding energy industry or distribution or demand. But as you can see, CCS is not included currently. And this means that CCS is not in the scope of JCM now. And of course, there are no example of CCS projects realized on the JCM in the past. So, in parallel with project development, CCS should be added to the scope of JCM. But to issue carbon credit, CCS has some unique specific issues to be considered, which are not considered in the rules of the current rules of JCM. So the revision of JCM rules and the guidelines necessary, we think. And these shown in the bottom of this slide are the current JCM's rules and guideline documents. For example, the document for the project cycle procedure or the guidelines for the developing methodologies. And for your information, in the forest sector, the JCM rules and guidelines, which is specific to the RED Plus projects, is already established. So, towards the start of CCS projects in JCM, since last year, we started to work on the establishment of JCM rules and guidelines, which is specific to CCS projects. Through the study in last year, we extracted the additional items to be considered as shown here, like participation conditions, sectoral scopes, I just mentioned, eligible project, net emission reduction, and project stage within scope, GHG sources, closure period monitoring, and credit reserve. These are specific to CCS projects and not considered in other type of JCM projects. Based on these results, we are considering the specific requirements on the new JCM rules and guidelines. I will introduce some of the items. Please understand that these are only the current idea and may change in the future. And for the eligible project, we think these types of projects, these project types, CCS, enhanced gas recovery, and enhanced oil recovery is eligible for CCS projects on JCM. On the other hand, carbon capture and utilization CCU projects, such as the carbon neutral fuels, will not covered at this moment. The closure period monitoring. This is one of the important issues. One of the difficult problems in CCS is the guarantee of permanence of CO2 reduction to be issued as a carbon credit. In the ordinary JCM projects like rooftop solar or simple energy efficiency projects, the realized CO2 reduction is, of course, permanent. But in CCS, if the injected CO2 is leaked into the air, the permanence of CO2 reduction as injected CO2 is broken. For this reason, to confirm no CO2 leakage occurred by the post-injection monitoring is very important in terms of issuance of JCM credits by avoiding overissue. Currently, we think the post-injection monitoring should be conducted in accordance with host country or regulation, host country or host region's regulation. In addition to monitoring, the countermeasure for the leakage of CO2 should be considered as well. One of the options is the credit reserve. The basic concept of the credit reserve is this, as shown. When CO2 injection finished, but the post-injection monitoring is still underway, this JCM credit can be issued at ordinary holding account, account in the JCM registry, but some of them should be subtracted and kept in another special credit account called a reserve account. If CO2 leakage occurred during monitoring, the corresponding amount of credits in the reserve account will be cancelled to prevent overissuance of credit. If the amount of CO2 leakage exceeds the amount of reserve credit, the regular or ordinary JCM credit must be cancelled as well. And if no leakage is observed during monitoring, the reserve credits will be transferred to the holding credit and will be treated as the same as regular credit. This approach would allow for the issuance of credit based on the amount of injection while preventing the over-issuance of credit. Okay, so these are our activity of the on the CCS on the JCM. And in closing, in order to expand JCM towards the goal of this goal, it is essential to realize the CCS projects under JCM, we think. And we are working on the development of potential CCS projects towards moving on the demonstration stage. Also, JCM rules and guidelines is being revised so that CCS projects will be covered in JCM. And we think that current target year is 2026. So we will continue our activities toward the realization of CCS projects on the JCM. And in today's explanation I skipped, we are also interested in the project for the carbon removal CDR on JCM. The project I introduced today, like EOR or EGR, are all carbon reduction project. But as you know, the CDR project is much more difficult and expensive than these EOR or EGR types of projects. And it takes much more time to be deployed. So for now, we will gain experiences during the introduced project, like developing the methodology. And when CDR projects come to be deployed, we can use these experiences. Okay, so that's all for my presentation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you for your informative presentation, Dr. Shiomi. Sharing of the latest status of efforts to include CCS in the JCM scheme should be of great interest to many participants. Now I'd like to invite questions for Dr. Shiomi's presentation. And we already received several questions on the Q&A box. Thank you for the good questions. So we would like to cover the questions as much as possible. Okay, let me start the question with. Okay, Dr. Shiomi, could you answer this question? Are companies participating by means of equity investment in CCS projects in abroad with the support by Japanese government through subsidies, such as JOGMEC, equity capitals, etc., able to get JCM credit generated by the project? If yes, what would be the sharing principle of the credit concerned?
Okay, thank you very much for your question. For the allocation of the JCM credit percentage, according to the JCM rules, the JCM credit should be allocated considering the ratio of contribution of each project participants, and mainly the credit allocation percentage is determined based on the percentage of the money or budget. So today I introduced the NEDOS program and sorry, wait a moment. Sorry, yeah. I introduced the NEDOS program, and in this program, most of the project cost is burdened by supported by the NEDO. So many part of the JCM credit should be gained by the NEDO. Yes. So the JCM credits will be basically allocated in accordance with the ratio of the money burdened by each project participant. Is this answer for you?
Yes, I think so. Thank you so much. So then let's move on next question. I have two questions. Could you elaborate more on how JCM allows both countries to reduce their NDCs? Is there any sort of equal distribution of credit agreed before implementing the project? You may already answer the second one. And sorry, the next one is how does JCM relates to the GX League?
Okay, thank you very much. And the question for JCM and GX, which is promoting by METI. Yes, and we are now establishing the GX League and the carbon credit market in Japan. And we it is not decided not yet, but I think that JCM it is a good thing to use the JCM credits obtained by Japanese company in the GX League to achieve their goals or target of GST reduction by private companies. And so it is not decided, but I hope JCM credit will be used in the GX League to achieve their private companies' targets.
Thank you very much. The next question is to disclose JCM credit price might be one of the incentives to proceed CCS project in Southeast Asia. Do you have any plans about this?
Yeah, thank you very much. And that is a very good question. As you pointed, the price of JCM is not existed because uh, there's no example of trade of JCM credits. But just I said, for GX League and in the uh, carbon credit market in Japan, it might be JCM credit might be used in that GX League or carbon market. And uh, to to determine the price of the JCM credit, I think it is important to uh, it is important to do a trade of JCM credit. And it's of course, and this is not decided yet, but in the in the near future, the carbon credit market in Japan, the JCM credit might be traded, and through these trades, the price of JCM will be decided, I think.
Thank you very much. Let me bring you a few more questions. Yeah, if time allows. Okay, there. What kind of domestic company in Japan having production or technical skill do you think can get 100% cost support from METI regarding CCS project in order to build CCS as a business?
I think that's a very difficult difficult questions. Uh, in this for now, we are in the context of JCM, we are supporting the pilot project of pilot project CCS project in the JCM this feasibility study scheme. But in the future, the CCS project should be implemented in only business sector by obtaining the JCM by the obtaining the JCM credit. So I can promise that the business with obtaining JCM credits for the return should be ideal, I think.
Thank you very much for answering this difficult question. Thank you. And let me bring you that this will be the final question, and this would be the great interest also a great interest to many participants also.
Mhm.
Could you explain why CCU, like plastic, cement, etc., is not included in JCM? What challenges did you face?
Okay, thank you very much. So the typical CCU project is like a carbon neutral fuels, like capturing CO2 in the air, and after some chemical reactions, and it produced a carbon neutral fuels. The difficult problem is the moment that CO2 is captured, it is actually CO2 is reduced. But when the fuel is used, it means burned. The CO2 is once again go back to the air. So from and in the life cycle, the CO2 is not increased but not decreased. So carbon neutral. So that is very much difficult point to develop the methodology for CCU project. Yes, and I think this point is should be considered and studied in parallel to this CCS project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shiomi, for answering many questions and for your great presentation today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.